Hello, everyone! What we're about to talk about today is probably the dream of millions of football fans around the world. Just imagine. Tonight, FIFA suddenly announces, starting next year, the World Cup will no longer be held once every 4 years. Instead, it will be held every single year. Wait a second. A World Cup every year? A final every year? Excitement every year? Tears and joy every year? The whole world glued to their TVs every year? At first glance, this sounds absolutely amazing. In fact, many football fans would probably jump off their couches in celebration. But here's the question. Would this decision really make football better? Or could it slowly change the greatest sporting tournament in the world? Let's find out what would happen if the World Cup were held every year. First of all, we need to understand that the World Cup is not just a football tournament. It is the biggest sporting event on the planet. During the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, around 5 billion people watched at least part of the tournament. That means more than half of Earth's population.
Now imagine such a massive event happening every single year. At first, everyone would be happy. Football fans would be happy, television networks would be happy, advertising companies would be happy, national team jersey sellers would be happy, and probably the only people who wouldn't be happy would be teachers, who would have to deal with students secretly checking match results instead of paying attention in class. The biggest advantage is that we would no longer have to wait 4 years. Every year, the world's best players would face each other. A final every year. A surprise every year. New stories every year. Economically, huge things would happen as well. Host countries would earn billions of dollars from tourism, hotels, restaurants, transportation, ticket sales, and advertising. Cities would become busier, businesses would thrive, and football would become an even bigger global industry. The transfer market would also be transformed. Today, a young player might only get one chance to shine on the World Cup stage. But in this scenario, new stars would be born every year. An unknown player could become one of the most famous footballers in the world within just a few weeks. Clubs would constantly search for fresh talent. Smaller countries would also have a better chance of succeeding. In the real world, a golden generation may only get 1 or 2 opportunities to win the World Cup. But if the tournament were held every year, that same generation could make several attempts at lifting the trophy. As a result, the chances of less favored teams becoming champions would increase. So far, everything sounds great. It's like entering football paradise.
But this is exactly where the problems begin. The first victim of this decision would be the value of the World Cup itself. Today, winning the World Cup is one of the rarest achievements in sports. Some of the greatest players in history never managed to win it. Why? Because opportunities are extremely limited. A professional footballer usually gets only 3 or 4 chances to play in a World Cup during their career. But if the World Cup were held every year, a player might participate in 15 or even 20 tournaments. As a result, winning it would no longer feel as legendary or historic. It would be like holding the Olympics every year, or celebrating your birthday every week. After a while, the special feeling would begin to fade. But that's not the only problem. Let's talk about records. Today, World Cup records are incredibly valuable. But if the World Cup were held every year, records would explode. Some players might play more than 100 World Cup matches. Goal-scoring records would skyrocket. Assist numbers would rise dramatically. And comparing different generations would become almost impossible. In the future, someone might say, only 13 World Cup goals? Even though today, that number is considered a historic achievement.
Now, let's think about the players' bodies. The football calendar is already extremely crowded.
Many professional footballers play more than 50 or 60 matches per year. Some stars even come close to 70 matches annually. Now imagine adding a full World Cup every year. More fatigue, more pressure, more injuries. Coaches might even have to tell their players, please be careful even when you're walking. We've got several important tournaments coming up. Clubs probably wouldn't be happy either. They spend millions of dollars on their players. If a star player gets injured during the World Cup, the club suffers a huge loss. As a result, tensions between clubs and national teams would increase. But perhaps the biggest problem is something less visible: mental pressure. The World Cup is the most intense football competition in the world. A single mistake in one match can stay in people's memories for years. Now, imagine that pressure repeating every year. The chances of mental burnout, stress, and psychological exhaustion among players would increase dramatically. Global vacations and economies would also be affected. In many countries, productivity drops during the World Cup. Employees follow the matches. Meetings get postponed. Some people even take time off work to watch games. If this happened every year, many companies would probably have to organize their schedules around the World Cup. Host nations would face new challenges as well. Building modern stadiums costs billions of dollars. If the World Cup were held every year, finding suitable host countries would become much more difficult. Some countries might end up hosting repeatedly. As a result, many nations would have fewer opportunities to host the tournament. But perhaps the most important thing is this: human beings place greater value on things that are rare. If Christmas happened every month, it wouldn't feel magical anymore. If birthdays happened every week, they wouldn't feel special. The World Cup would probably suffer the same fate. People would no longer wait 4 years. That long anticipation would disappear. The streets might lose some of their excitement and energy, and the greatest sporting event on Earth would slowly become just another ordinary event. And that's the strange paradox of this whole scenario. Maybe what makes the World Cup the greatest tournament in the world isn't just football itself. Maybe a huge part of its magic comes from the 4-year wait. So, if the World Cup were held every year, it would probably create more excitement in the short term. But in the long run, it would lose part of its value, prestige, and magic. Now, it's your turn. If the decision were yours, would you hold the World Cup every year? Or would you keep the tradition of once every 4 years? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And friends, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe.